Hello and welcome to Paradigm Playbook, a podcast for entrepreneurs in the business of sports. Your hosts, Dave Kozak and Steve Cook, are business owners, successful entrepreneurs, sports enthusiasts, avid readers, and longtime friends. For years, they've read every business book on the market and built successful companies with what they've learned. This podcast will give you the critical takeaways in just 15 minutes a week. It's a quick and easy playbook for building a winning sports business. And now, here are your hosts, Dave and Steve.
Paradigm Playbook offers business, reset, and expansion expertise. Visit ParadigmPlaybook.com to see how we can assist you. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Paradigm Playbook's podcast. I'm your host, Dave Kozak, alongside my co-host, Mr. Steve Cook.
Morning, David.
Sir. So, had a great interview last week with Christie Copeland, who's veteran in the auto industry, veteran gym owner, flips the script, sells the gym, stays in auto, and then goes into consulting, and specifically consulting in the marketing arena, which I think there were some great insights in that podcast that I want to reflect on. And I think we can also take it a step further and kind of convert to the selling and the sale and the closing the deal and the wrapping it all up. But you know, the number one takeaway for me was her big aha moment as a 19-year gym owner was when she went to the 9 to 5. She called it business hours or
office hours. She added office hours,
where she had a person at the facility, and she said that's when the growth really happened for her. And I, you know, in that conversation, I talked about taking yourself seriously. And the moment you do something like that, you're taking your business seriously, and other people will take you seriously as well. So I think her insight, and obviously she comes from a finance background, which I thought was another interesting point, takeaway, that she really approached it from the business side with a passion.
Yeah, so she talked about a lot of things. Before I dig in, I want to clarify. So when she made the flip into consulting, she's consulting with entrepreneurs. So she's living right in our wheelhouse. It's like and she has the background in sports and finance, but she's focusing a lot on these sports businesses, which is, you know, near and dear to my heart, that, you know, we're kind of, you know, playing in the same field. She talked about the time she spent working on the business, which is the thing that you talk about all the time, David.
Yeah. And, you know, it's so much easier said than done, right? Working on the business is, you have to put certain things aside. You have to get yourself out of certain things to be able to do that, right? So when we go back to the E-myth and you talk about the technician, the manager, and the business owner, right? It's hard to get to that business owner level. But, you know, for the budding entrepreneur, start with, you know, maybe it's 5% of your time is in that business owner, and tick up time as you find success to spend more time on that business. Because I think you're spot on, Steve. She did spend time on the business. You know, when you hear about someone owning a gymnastics club and gets evaluation done after 4 years to see where she is, that's a big deal, right? That's a head in the right spot.
Yeah, she talked about how difficult it was to move outside of the coaching. You know, she loved coaching. She still loves coaching. And in essence, she even made the point where a little bit of why the consulting, you know, came home for her was it's kind of like the same as coaching. So she's doing the same thing that she was doing, but she's developed this passion for the business side of it. I was really impressed by it was driven by the analytics of the data, which too often those of us that are strictly from the sports world, you know, you and her have this commonality of being financial, so you're more numbers oriented, whereas I had to come upon that the tough way. You know, now I talk about, you know, keeping track of 13 different revenue streams and keeping the data on the marketing, your customer database. But that was hers from the beginning. which maybe is what allowed her to advance further through the cycle of, launch, develop, sell, which a lot of entrepreneurs are in that, not that mindset, but that's the cycle they're in.
Yeah. And again, I'm going to throw another book out there, which is Gino Wickman's EOS, or what the heck is EOS? A big part of EOS is this thing called the scorecard. And the scorecard is a measurement system designed and set up by the company or the business owner or the person. And the idea behind that particular mechanism, the scorecard, is it's 3 to 4 stats that you're regularly monitoring that indicate the health of the business. It's not the bottom line numbers that we're talking about. It's not the total marketing success, the total clicks or opens and things like that. But it's the idea of the activity measurements that you can control. And so for anyone starting a business or is in the first 5 years, really honing in on 4 or 5 things that give you good information. It's not about necessarily dollar revenues. One of the things we look at is registration rates on workshops that we do, because if enough people are registering, that's a very good indication of what's going to happen down the line, right? The numbers don't lie. They don't change all that much. So if I know I'm getting, 2,000 to 2,500 registrants a year at my events, then I know that we're going to have a successful year because our numbers are, we're 10 years into numbers at that point. But I think you can simplify it and you can start there by creating that sort of scorecard component, right? And maybe a scorecard piece is marketing, but rather than saying, is my marketing effective? It's like, well, the scorecard should be, I want to send to my current database an email a week. Okay. That's a checkbox, right? On your scorecard. Did you do it? Yes, it was done. Okay. Now, say you ramp up. Now you're going to send 2 emails a week. Okay. And all of a sudden you got a CRM or you got a more sophisticated system that can measure click rates. Okay. I'm going to send 2. That's the activity, but I want to get a click rate or an open rate of a certain percentage. And now you're starting to work towards a more sophisticated scorecard. So again, it doesn't have to be overly complex in my opinion, but, the reflection back to you said, or I think I brought it up, was the valuation component, right? There was a focus there. And I think this is something that should be extracted to the budding entrepreneur or even the successful entrepreneur. Valuations are very important in structuring and understanding where you are in business, right? So in her mindset, she said, and it's not a direct quote, but essentially she said, well, most businesses fail in the first 5 years. So let me get a valuation in the 4th year to see where I'm at. And that's a very powerful thought right there.
She was very intellectually mature at that point. And I can tell you from all the consulting I've done with small business owners, that is a mindset. Moreover, they go to, well, the cost of that valuation is something I can avoid. I'll save that money right now. So I don't think that they're thinking long term in that, but you're 100% correct. It'll tell you what you're doing right. 2, it'll tell you what you're doing wrong, and it'll tell you why your thinking is so far off base. And we all make that mistake of overvaluing mentally what it's worth, but the valuation is telling you not what you think it's worth or how good it is in a, soft and fuzzy status. It's, what it's worth in someone else's mind. What will somebody pay for this business?
Yeah. That's a huge thing to understand. So, one of the other points that she made that I think is incredibly valuable and insightful, and I'm going to extrapolate on it a little bit and kind of expand the thought, was that in her consulting world, she meets with these small sports business owners and is working on their marketing, and they're not doing the simple thing, which is sending an email to their database. And so I think, and we've talked about this before, Steve, on our podcast, just the Paradigm Playbook, not a Playmakers podcast, but in the Playbook, And I've made mention that the level of sophistication in marketing is an expanding environment. You don't have to start day one with the super complex structure and the super powerful, CRM that can manage and you can select and divide and do all the different specific marketing. But starting simple and communicating with your database is huge. Once you find success and you have some money, then you can create the next level of sophistication. Maybe the next level is a text message and an email. Maybe a level after that is a reminder for upcoming classes, or maybe you enter into the phone calls. And then maybe you start a newsletter. Maybe all of these things are sequential. Don't try and start with all of them, or the overwhelm will hit in. So I loved her point about just, maybe it's just 3 emails you send it to every client that walks in your door.
It's no different. And we talk about atomic habits. And so marketing becomes a habit with an entrepreneur. And just like, you don't go in to max out your bench press in the gym the first time in, you go to show up. So that maybe that is just starting to collect that database. And then the next step is you're going to do a little workout. I'm going to send, a weekly email, and then you're going to write more content, and then you're going to expand. The whole thing grows, and there's a kind of a fun aspect to the marketing if you can get into it and really say, I'm going to dig into this. And now I'm going to, I'm finding that with this business with, we started out by doing a podcast, and we're what, 50 into it now, and now we're talking about 2 a week, and we're doing all kinds of crazy things. But that's when you get traction, when you do a little bit more of that, and there's a process for doing that. Christie spoke pretty strongly about having an annualized marketing calendar that says, here's what I'm going to do for the next 12 months and how I'm, and I think when you make that kind of commitment, then you'll start getting traction.
Yeah. I mean, I think that goes down to goals and goal setting, right? Where, you start in business and okay, there's a fair, and you're going to go experiment with that. But after, and really you should probably start with this, is like, what are the over 12 months, what are the things that you're committed to doing? And you put them out there. Doesn't mean they can't change, right? Something happens. I mean, you can't make some event, who knows, but your intention is there, your budget is there, your long range annual marketing plan is built. And all you have to then do is stick to it, and know that
and keep score.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Your scorecard there is what becomes important, so that if I'm doing, fairs, and I'm, setting up a booth at fairs, then you have to know is, okay, what was my return on that? How many prospects did I meet? How many leads did I create? How many presentations did I make as a result of that fair? And then what did I close? So that process goes, and then you can measure state fair against a trade show, against a talk at the local PTA or PTO, or running a free training class, for all the second graders at XYZ Elementary.
Yeah. And the, she also commented and kind of got me on how I started. I remember the first event that I did, I spent $3,500, brand new company. So it was pure capital investment on my side to do it. And I calculated into that. And I think there were 50 people at the event, 50 families at the event. And to consider it a success, I needed to get 3 people to sign up for what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And if 3 people signed up, then I covered the cost of the event and had a little extra to go towards the next event. And so then it was, okay, I had already put the $3,500 in the kitty, essentially. So if I could just regenerate that and do it again and do it again and do it again, it wasn't a $6,000, $12,000. It wasn't an increasing investment. It was kind of the same investment, just getting multiples. So she talked about when you go to those things, what is it that you're trying to achieve and clear from an income standpoint or from a return standpoint, right? And so, some people will spend $3,000 expecting to make $25,000, and maybe some events are better or some things are better and have that type of return. But I think you need to make sure to set a lower target for that stuff until you can understand what is successful, right?
Yeah, I think focusing your market on something specific. We've all seen that flyer that's been made that tries to tell you what the company is, what they do, how you can be part of it, how you can sign up, and what it's going to cost. So you're trying to take someone through the entire spectrum of marketing and sales with one vehicle, whereas that first marketing piece has to be to get someone to know you. And then we talk about, then once they know who you are, now you got to get them to like you. So you have to, get them some interest. So your message is a little bit different. And then once they're interested and they're leaning your way, how do you reel them in and how do you make them a customer? And then it doesn't stop there. And I think Christie kind of emphasized this, that sometimes our current customers are the ones most likely to spend more money and the most likely to be neglected from a marketing standpoint. We're not marketing to those families that are already there.
Yeah, a huge point.
Hey, if you're enjoying Paradigm Playbook Podcast, please share and tag us on social media. Your support is greatly appreciated.
I think the other piece that I'll kind of add to that, they get to know you, then they get to like you, then they're leaning your way, and you got to close that deal, right? That doesn't have to be a timetable, right?
No,
you can do that in one sitting. You could do that in several sittings. You can do that in one email. You can do it in several. But if you think about the trade show environment, right? As a general rule of thumb, from my perspective, I would never go to a trade show without an offer in hand for people to take advantage of at that show.
Mm-hmm.
Something that if you got, say 100 people came by your booth and you got 10 people to take your offer, it's a giant success. Now you have the target set, you have the offer on the table. Now you can go to what I think the next subject matter is, which is closing that deal, right? And so anytime that we go out, we have the offer. Sometimes you got to package the offer differently depending on the audience that you're talking to. The packaging is a huge part of it. But I think to go to an event without the sequence built is a waste of time.
Yeah, yet it's done all the time.
All the time.
Yeah. So as I hear it, and I talk about my corporate life, and I hear it all the time. How was that trade show? It was good. We talked to a lot of people. Well, if that was your goal to talk to a lot of people, you can probably go to a bar and do that. You can, there's other ways of doing it. So, but I think if you set your goals or have your offer ready, and an expectation of what you expect out of it. You have this offer and you want 3 people to take advantage of it. I mean, that's good, but that opens you up to failure.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some people kind of cloud their marketing offer to avoid recording failure. And I think what's important is to identify failure. So it's as important to determine what marketing efforts fail as what works.
Yeah, no question about it. So, and that brings in the conversation of a split test, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're testing 2 pieces, right? So the best success would be 10 enrollments, let's say, whatever 10 enrollments, 10 purchases, 10 deals, right? The second best success would be 100 email addresses, right? So if you go to a trade show or you go to an event and you want the 10 deals and you have an opportunity to capture emails and you have an offer for deals, like, hey, I'm going to give you 25% off. You have a second offer that is, hey, give me your email address and I'll send you a group of offerings, a group of discounts that we're offering over the coming months. And so the deal is not always just to get them to spend money. Sometimes the deal is just to get their contact information. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's the offer that you need to, or the package that you're delivering at that event or in that place, knowing that your conversation is more like, hey, Steve, I'm glad you stopped by our booth. We're doing something unique or different in the gymnastics world or in the sports world or in the business world. Our main focus of coming here is to try and get contacts so that we can share with you the offerings that we have and the discounts that we offer over the course of time, and so that you're first to know, when there's a new deal on the table. Oh, sure, I'll give you my email address. Maybe get 100 of those, and from those 100, then the subsequent offer comes out that night or the next day or the day after, right?
Yeah, I think the interview with Christie was interesting to me because, I could see the similarity in her mindset and yours, and, both coming from a very analytic background. I think that was great. But Christie's, and you've done the same thing with me, and I get all excited. I'm out giving a talk with, a certain organization, and I'm speaking to this, and I've got 200 people in the room. And, you both say to me, that's great. How many names did you get? How many emails did you have? So it's like, giving the talk gives me the warm and fuzzy. Getting the names gives me an opportunity. So I think I've learned, and Christie's been very helpful with me in keeping my focus on that okay, this has to be about building a database. And then I think she took it one step further and says, then there has to be a system. She uses MailChimp, I think. I forget what she said, constant contact, something, but some method of getting, doing organized email marketing.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be over the top. It doesn't have to be highly complex. It just has to be consistent
and planned.
Yeah.
So it's good. Yeah, it was really a good interview, and I was intrigued by the amount of similarities coming out in her mind as what we've talked or what you've brought up in previous podcasts about marketing. So talk just for a minute. Let's go back to the book that Christie brought up, actually, that you bring up all the time.
Oh, yeah. Donald Miller's The Marketing Made Simple and the story brand concept. That is a proven, simple way to share your company's story brand. And that story brand mentality is you're getting them to know you. You're getting them to like you. Then you're getting them to do business with you. Right. And it's a sequence, and it doesn't have to be a highly complex sequence, but it has to be one that's shared and has to be thought about, right? So if you're looking to start a marketing campaign, and you might as well go to the dartboard and put all the different things you can do marketing up and throw a dart at it. But the key component is getting contacts and turning contacts to leads, taking leads and closing deals, right? In any business, that is what it takes. People have to find out who you are, learn more about you, get to like you, and then you have to convert them. And the story brand model does that very well from a standpoint of expressing why you're in business and what you do differently and why they should interact with you.
And if you keep you kept talking about the scorecard. If you keep the scorecard on that and what works, then, if you're not going back to to what worked, it's like everybody, we did a free clinic and we got 10 kids and now we're going to try, well, if you got 10 kids, do another free clinic, then you get 10 more. So whatever works, keep going back to it. And there's nothing, Christie and I have had this conversation. We didn't on the air, but we, talk about, the best sales system is the test drive with anything. You try, like if you want to sell donuts, give people a taste of the donut. If you want them to, learn how to hit a baseball, give them a piece of that lesson. Now,
go to your local Costco, BJ's, Whole Food, whatever. And if you don't believe that's true, why are there people standing in the aisle handing out free samples?
Yeah, and it's everything. And I guess car dealers are the ones that have done it the longest. And they,
why don't you take this home? Why don't you go ahead and take it home, show your wife, and come on back?
The ownership close is a big one, and it works all the time. But I think that if there was one point that I'll take from Christie that fits right into what we talk about all the time, it's the system. And that,
always.
and then you
process.
always come back to process. And that's Gino Wickham's, mantra. And everything is the same. If, whether you're selling, a product, a service, a combination of that, and whether it doesn't matter. People come up to me all the time and say, "Oh, I would love your service, but I'm a not-for-profit." Well, you still have to market it the same. Well, and Christie talked about working with the Chamber of Commerce, and it's the same as a business. Whatever you're doing, if you're, the Girl Scouts or the PTO, you're a club, whatever you're doing, if you're trying to expand your influence, that's marketing.
Yeah. No question about it. The point we didn't get into was conversion of marketing. But I also want to kind of go through a sequence that I used in practice over the last 15 years in building my practices, and remind me to talk about a question I was asked last week that will tie all this together. So there's this concept of attraction, retention, optimization, and then I guess it's attraction, conversion, retention, optimization. And I imagine a circle, and there's, a pie for each of those, a piece of the pie for each of those. On part of the optimization side is this concept of autopilot, right? And so you let's say you work out a good half a business model, which is you attract people and you convert people, right? Maybe you're not retaining them yet. Maybe that's the next step you have to go to. But once you attract and convert people, and let's say, Steve, it's this concept of you're just sending out an email to everybody you meet. You're sending an email to everybody you meet. At some point, you want that email to go out automatically. At some point, you want to start creating optimization of systems and processes where you're not having to plug in the email address and send it. You have a way to do it that's automated. And so we're constantly trying to work towards the automation of that stuff, right? And so in my first business, I talked about that first workshop I threw. I had a printout that was an evaluation form, and if you wanted an appointment, you fill out your name at the bottom. I would take that back to my office. I would send an individualized email to that person. I would do it. Well, now we do 150 presentations a year, and some of them are virtual, some of them are in person. Now it's fully automated. You enter your registration, you're registered, you get reminders for the events, then you get follow-up from the event, then you get your appointment set, then you get your calendar. But that's been 10 years of building that, right? So I think in all of this, start simple. I preach about we're going to do it by hand until we know what we want. And then only when we have what we want are we going to step into the automation world, right? But get the process down, make it a manual physical process, and then start in the automation of the different pieces.
Yeah, and I think with the growth of AI and everything else that's going on, that automation piece gets simpler all the time. But before we scare anybody off for thinking they have to go into this complicated system, email marketing systems are the simple. I mean, like I learned it, so it's got to be pretty simple. But I think anybody can do that. And it's almost like if you don't know how to do one of these things, find the closest teenager and ask them how to do it, and they'll explain it to you.
There you go. It's most of it's click and point functionality.
Yeah, you have kids that can do this for you now too, and your kids aren't old.
Yeah, true. So I want to circle back to something you said.
Back to the question that was asked you.
So I was on a conference call. It was a joint venture conference call where I was getting invited or getting recruited for a joint venture operation between three companies. And the head of the call, or I guess the catalyst behind the call, asked me a question and asked it to the other person that was invited. And our company and this other company that were invited into this joint venture are both very successful over a long period of time, consistently successful over a long period of time. And the question was asked, what are you doing? What are you marketing? What are you doing marketing wise that's made you successful? And I said, I never stopped what I started 15 years ago. Never stopped doing what worked then. And he said, in his research of all of the organizations like ours that do the college planning and do the college admissions and financial services and all of the stuff associated with it, the successful ones never stopped or changed doing what worked. They added on. We've done plenty more, but I still spend $3,500 to send mailers out to do workshops.
Mm-hmm.
And he brought the correlation to me that you never went away from what was working. It's always been a piece of it. And so I think to your point, you said, don't stop doing things that work.
I think it's the theme of the book, Grit. Remember reading Grit? And it's, athletes, business people are the ones that have the ability to maintain focus and keep doing something over and over and over again. Michael Jordan, whether he had the most natural talent or not, I don't know, but I can tell you he took more shots than anybody else. So, maybe LeBron's beating him now, but if you want to do something, you do it. It works, keep doing it. If it doesn't work, replace it. Don't just eliminate it, replace it with something else. But, winners outplay losers, outwork losers all the time. So I agree with you. That's a great question, by the way.
Yeah. You made the point that, if you do a free clinic and you get 10 clients, why would you not do as many free clinics as you can if you're trying to build a client base? You have something that outperforms that, do both.
Right.
If you don't have something that outperforms it, do that and do it at a feverish pace. And again, it was interesting in this conversation where he came back and said, and there's probably 5 of us that are really ingrained in what we do. And it has become a very scalable, big time model. And 2 of us were on that call. And he said the other 3, same deal. They never stopped. And mind you, we were sending mailers, and mailers during COVID were virtually impossible because the USPS failed and you couldn't get mail to places. So we did have to pivot, but as soon as mail came back online, we were right back on it, never skipped a beat. So when you find something that works, stick with it until it doesn't work.
And just because you do social media doesn't mean you can stop mailing or emailing.
Nope.
So,
we spend an incredible amount on social media, right? But
very good.
All right. This has been our Paradigm Playbook podcast, reflecting on the interview we did and some great insights that I thought were pulled out of there.
Yeah. Fun stuff on marketing, and it won't be the last, I'm sure.
Absolutely. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and click like. We appreciate everybody's feedback, and it's what gets us on the interweb. And
just in case you're not listening to the Playmakers episodes, if you're a playmaker in the world of sports business, give us a call. We need more people on.
Asterisk small business.
Yes.
Any small business.
Sure.
All right, everybody. That's been Paradigm Playbooks podcast. Thanks for listening.
And make it a great day.
Thank you for listening. Visit ParadigmPlaybook.com to discover how we can support you and your business.